Welcome to Tales from the Bridge, episode 4. In our last episode, we had a great conversation about Snow Crash, and in the episode that follows this one, we are back to books talking about a memory called Empire, but in this episode, we are discussing science fiction, TV, and film. This is a really fun one, so let's make our way over to the bridge.
I did my homework on Battlestar Galactica. I rewatched what I remember to be the greatest episode of television I had ever seen until that point, which was the season finale of the third season of Battlestar Galactica. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but
I have not.
when I was reading the articles online about like what the things they left undone, right? I was like, and then I rewatched this thing. It was pretty clear to me that like, oh yeah, I remember, right? There's four Cylons that reveal themselves, late in the game. That is amazing. This is the big reveal at the end of the third season. But then there's a scene somewhere along in there where they're, in this projected spiritual space of the temple, and there's clearly five that come out, right? And of the, as light beings, right? It's all symbolic, and you're like, oh, these are the five, right? But there's four that are revealed at the end of that thing, and then everybody complains that, like, with Starbuck, it's all stupid. They just killed her and then brought her back to life and never explained it, and da-da-da-da-da. But that, though, I think I even remember getting this when that was the point. She was the fifth unrevealed Cylon, that and that's why she got to come back. It's another clone of hers, right? And she takes them all to Earth, and and I thought that was great. I'm very happy with that ending. But when I read about how people are upset about it, they don't seem to. I don't know. Maybe I misunderstood, but they don't seem to have gotten that point.
That series got me back into serial television. I feel like that's really kickstarted a lot of really good TV, or was maybe part of a few shows that did at the time. And the one that, like that one, that was the one that really grabbed me. And I remember at the time I just started to work in TV, and we were shopping for shows, but I was working at History Television, so we were shopping for a different type of program. It was we went for a period Western, but it was still good. And what I liked about that was that it has the grab of a soap opera. You start to understand why that continuous story is. You have sort of small stories and dramas that happen within each episode, but you have this overarching sort of drama happening, and it just leads you on. And when it's done really well, it's really good. It's addictive, I didn't discover that show until it was in its second season. I remember buying it on DVD, and my wife and I watching, like, having our first binge watch and just plowing through it and going, oh my God, this is a whole different thing. Like, this is all new. And strangely though, I never saw the season finale, the series finale, I should say. Yeah. I missed the last half of the last season, and
well, some people would say that you're better off for having done that.
The storytelling was the delivery of the special effects too, right? Like like those tumbling horizons of the space dogfights and the ships and everything.
Yeah.
That like that kind of sold it for me, because it's not like this clean cinematic dogfight in space. It's like every end can be up and down. It's space, and so what does that look like when you navigate in space, right? Like all these little details that just really sold it for me.
Totally.
And it's dirty, and it's everyone's kind of flawed, and there's analog parts of it too that I really liked, and
totally. It's
so
analog.
good.
Well, there's no lasers, right? Even you notice that it's all ballistics, right? It's all missiles, torpedoes, just ships and then they blink in and out. That's the only, like, boom, and it's beautiful how they jump, right? But it's all ballistics, and that informs, like, the military aspect, that you're in these little fighter ships, right? And you're in 3D space, and it's like, they roll with them, right? And they flip, and there's swarms of. I remember being blown away. Like, that was the first time we'd seen not drone warfare, but like big ship plus many little ships and flocks of little ships, and like it was just like, oh, cool! They're armies of ships, and you see them. It was amazing. I love that show. I think there's nothing better on television in the last 20 years or whenever it came out.
Yeah, I can't think of like the only other series that I'm a big fan of that takes place almost entirely in space is The Expanse. And then I think of Discovery was really good too. But everything else that I like TV wise that happens that sort of falls under sci-fi is like X-Files or The Man in High Castle. I got sucked into Fringe.
Fringe is great. I love Fringe. I
Yeah.
watched all of Fringe. Yeah.
I would say even like Stranger Things now, and Rick and Morty even, right? Like it's they do really fun stuff, but none of those are in the same sort of sci-fi TV genre that I think Battlestar Galactica occupies. It's not taking place in space. We're not covering big distances in the galaxy or universe and having to contend with all of that and fight, and we're not doing that in any of these other shows. They're sci-fi for different reasons, and so because who wants to compete with Battlestar Galactica?
Nope.
Sam, you were talking about space westerns. Did anybody watch Firefly in the early 2000s?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, to me, that's what space western is Firefly.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and there's a lot of fun in that because you do get that kind of analog flavor to your space stuff, right? Your spaceships can be dirty and kind of like more recognizable and accessible in a way. And
well, I think it took a dimension of the Western and like amplified it almost to self-parody, right? Like to like, okay, really a Western. We got the gunslingers and and they made it dirty and kind of like the Wild West and the ragtaggy, shipping and making a buck off this ship, almost piracy in space vibe. It was good.
Well, have you seen? I remember I brought up with you guys before was Love, Death, and Robots, the series on Netflix.
Yeah, it was great. It's like Black Mirror, right? But like animated shorts, sci-fi shorts, basically.
Well, yeah, I mean,
They were
Black
great.
Mirror is amazing because it takes these ideas and it runs with it, these near future dystopian ideas, and that's why that show is for me phenomenal.
Yeah.
But Love, Death, and Robots is just a proper little romp. There's these little shorts. Some of them are I think they're all animated, and they're just like dust. Marty, the YouTube sci-fi kind of a clearinghouse, but they curated maybe 12 episodes of short sci-fi goodness, and they really are. The name of it's perfect: Love, Death, and Robots. It's an awesome title, and every single one of them. I remember I was at a conference somewhere in a reasonably exciting city, although not so exciting that I can remember which. And I remember saying I could go and do something, or I could stay in and watch Love, Death, and Robots. So, I mean, that's what I chose to do, which says two things: something about me, but also that it was a very good series.
I love that series. It was great, right? It's the short story form of movie sci-fi, and I love those little short stories. They're just little gems, right? And they're in a different universe. You just get the idea, boom, distilled into a single 20-minute object. Yeah, I love those. I showed a lot of them to the kids too. Like some of them are super smart. Do you remember the one about the artist, right, that ends up painting blue?
That was amazing.
That was so art. Far out.
Yeah, it was.
Just, he paints ultimately planets and Jupiter's rings of planets blue, right? And it gets all and he does this all in the space of 10 to 15 minutes. It's wow, that concentrated punch of awesome sci-fi-ness.
Yep.
Oh, I don't even know if I've heard of this, so I'll check that out. That sounds,
check it out.
I think you would like them in particular, Tristan, because they're perfect. I mean, they're not necessarily always resolved, but the story is complete after the end of them, and they're also short, so you can kind of intake your snippets in short bursts. I'm looking at them, and the average length is less than 12 minutes,
Oh wow.
as high as 17 minutes.
Did you watch the Animatrix? Being the
Yeah. Oh
Matrix
yeah.
fan
Well,
you are, yeah.
yeah.
So the
Many
Animatrix,
years
right?
ago.
Like a series of shorts, around that. This is kind of like what Love, Death, and Robots is. It's just less thematic and more broad. It's just
Nice.
sci-fi shorts, right? In the same sort of animated, awesome, diverse thing.
Well, Marty, I remember you once posting about this Dust Sci-Fi
Yeah,
YouTube channel. I don't know anything about it apart from there are a bunch of great, as far as I could tell, high quality amateur sci-fi videos
yeah.
from all sorts of different sources. Like I don't think they're all made by one person. I think they're made by different people, and Dust kind of promotes them.
Yeah, I mean, my impression is that it would be like, if you're enrolled as a film student in a university somewhere in the world, your final project is to produce, 5 to 10 minute short. So this place, Dust, I think just shows short stories of anybody who's submitted, or I don't know if they make, I think some of them they make themselves, but they clearly go out and get other people's material. Anyway, I don't know much about it. You're right, but I think it comes from lots of places. And to me, when I watch it, it seems like, oh yeah, okay, there's, students everywhere, filmmakers, right, who are making things, and they submit to competitions for prizes. They probably submit to be included in compilations like this, and there's a lot of that going on. Like, it's so amazing. The quality of production on Dust is like mind blowing to me. That these are amateur things, right? Like, people can just do.
My favorite from the 50s is definitely Forbidden Planet. If you're not familiar, this trivia will be kind of tricky, but do you know who played the main protagonist in Forbidden Planet?
No.
1956. The clue would be Naked Gun.
Oh, really?
Leslie Nielsen.
Leslie Nielsen.
Leslie Nielsen, yeah.
Commander John J.
1956.
Adams.
Yes. So in the 60s, what's your favorite, and then what's the most iconic? Or they could be the same one.
2001: Space Odyssey.
Definitely the most iconic, I would say.
Yeah,
That was That wasn't 60s.
Oh yeah, 68.
Really?
Yep.
I thought it was 70s.
Barbarella.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember watching that as a small child and being excited.
Didn't she try to have that movie like erased from her record or something? Is that?
Oh, I'm not sure.
that?
I didn't know that.
Oh, Jane Fonda.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd say my
I
personal
haven't seen any
favorite.
of these except 2001.
My personal favorite from the 60s is definitely the Planet of the Apes. That's my favorite movie franchise, I think. They're so bad and good at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another one from 1960 that's really good, and it's The Time Machine. I don't know if you've read the book, H.G. Wells, but it really follows the book really well, and it's a really good movie with good special effects for 1960. It's very cool.
Yeah, I've seen that one. I remember that one having a big effect on me, seeing that one as a kid.
Yeah,
It was a good one.
Cool. Moving on to the 70s, shall we?
Sure.
Yep.
What's the most iconic movie from the 70s?
Well, Star Wars: A New Hope.
So is that iconic? Do you think that is the most iconic movie of the 70s?
Maybe the most popular.
I think there are others.
sure.
Alien could be considered as iconic.
Soylent Green.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Soylent Green was in it. That one's part of our lexicon. And
Superman, the movie, the first ever, well, I guess, no, you can't. But really, the first major blockbuster superhero movie
For
ever.
sure. I watched that over and over
That was a
again.
great
when I was
movie,
a kid.
too.
Yeah, Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
right?
That's one of my favorite all-time movies.
that was a great movie.
Really
And
like
Mad Max. I mean, Mad Max, I think, is amazing and iconic as much as. But on this list, I'm surprised and amazed and happy to see Fantastic Planet, which is among my all-time favorite animated films of all time. I have
Very
this
good.
on a disc for you guys to watch. You've seen this?
Oh yeah,
Tristan?
I've seen this one many times. Oh yeah, And then I'm trying to think of the second movie that the filmmaker Gandahar.
Gandahar.
Okay, so that's the 80s, so maybe we shouldn't even get into that
Cool.
yet. But
I did not
but
know about that.
might as well. Yeah, Gandahar, 1987. It's honestly, it's even more science fiction and less fantasy like. It's a little more science fiction-y. It's really, really cool.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. Something new and amazing.
I'm not, and it's kind of like it actually
I would
reminds
love
me of
this.
the Mobius art in a way.
It's totally Fantastic Planet-esque.
Oh yeah, it's
I
beautiful.
love it.
And it's even trippier
It's right
and
here
more
on
science
YouTube.
fiction.
Oh my God, that's great. That's what I'm watching tonight.
Yeah, Gandahar is fantastic. There's one more from the 70s though that is one that I can say I've probably watched a couple dozen times because when I saw it when I was a kid, it blew my mind.
A couple dozen
and that's
times.
Logan's Run.
Oh wow!
I just love that one. It's so weird and cheesy, but it's just really good.
Well, you know, A Clockwork Orange was also in the 70s, 1971.
Right.
That one was really interesting.
Oh yeah.
And that was Stanley Kubrick, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Written by Anthony Burgess.
Right.
Here's a bit of trivia for you. Anthony Burgess, who wrote the book A Clockwork Orange, also did the caveman language that was written for the movie Quest for Fire.
Oh, you're kidding.
In 1981.
Amazing.
Do you know where Quest for Fire was filmed? All the cave scenes?
Well, some of it up north, yeah, just not far.
Yeah, just outside of Lake Meaford along Georgian Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yep.
Amazing.
This movie is really crazy, and it's Sean Connery in Zardoz. Have you guys ever seen this?
No way. I have no idea.
You've got to check out Zardoz. It's a terrible. It's hard to watch the whole movie.
Because that's a bad sign.
Zardoz?
But here's,
oh my God, that's
here's
Sean
the thing, though.
Connery?
It's
the costume department is amazing.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Oh my
so
God.
He's
in a red underwear with cross.
Yeah.
It's like Borat. He looks like Borat.
Yeah, kind of. Eh?
Oh,
man.
I have never heard of this.
So this movie, honestly, the first 10 to 15 minutes, you're going to be like, oh my God, this is so cool. It's 70s. It's so weird. It's actually very dark. It's not appropriate for kids for sure. There's a lot of sexual weirdness going on, not always in a nice way. But it's Sean Connery in underwear with a gun. And
holy crap.
there's just the first 10, 15 minutes, you're going to be like, this is the best thing ever. Pass me that joint back over here. And then after about a half an hour, you're going to feel tired. And after an hour, you're going to feel very tired. It just kind of draws out after that. You feel like you've seen everything in the first 10, 15 minutes. And then it slows down. And it's still a good movie, I guess, for being a weird 1974 obscure movie with a big name. But just watch the first 20 minutes. You'll have a blast.
Man, scrolling through the pictures of this, just Googling it is just
it's
amazing. I just am blown away by how weird and completely unknown this is to me.
I have to I'm trying to map out what led him there. I guess James Bond had ended, and I'm just going through his IMDb right now. I was like, what? Was there he was going through a dry spell maybe, and he wasn't getting a lot of work, but he was had to take the job, but
yeah,
it was also 1974. He could have been just on a lot of coke.
Yeah, I imagine
going on at the time.
Well, yeah, want to move into the 80s?
Sure.
I think this is my favorite decade for film. It's extremely diverse.
Well, speaking of good books being made into movies, is Blade Runner.
Yes.
That might fit under most iconic of the 80s. I'm not sure if we can pinpoint another one.
I think so. That's top of my list. RoboCop.
Yeah.
Yes. That's rather iconic, and it kind of fits with Terminator being iconic.
What's the last Starfighter?
The Last
Well,
Starfighter. I was gonna say that's like
yeah,
classic. I
that's a
saw that at
beauty.
the drive-in as a kid.
Yeah.
It's like every kid's fantasy, right? Like you get so good at a video game, and it's just a
Yes.
tryout for the real thing.
Yeah, and then you get to fly a starship.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's one of the best.
Wow, and speaking of like the old cheesy ones, Krull. Did you guys see Krull?
Oh yeah. Oh, I have the novelization.
Another drive-in special for me.
I love that, man.
I have never seen it.
Yeah, most of my 80s favorites feel like that. I can't tell if it's a good or bad movie because it meant so much as a child that it's hard to differentiate that. One would be Explorers, which is a Joe Dante movie with River Phoenix and Ethan Hawke. Do you guys remember that one?
Mm-mm.
Barely.
So they're young teenagers, 1985. River Phoenix and Ethan Hawke and one other actor who's not really in anything else. They make their own spaceship and they go to space. And I loved that one when I was a kid. Watched that one all the time.
I think I remember that one. I do. And it's like in the same vein as like batteries not included, or like the Mad Science or whatever.
Mad Science, yeah. That's John Hughes, right?
Right.
Yeah, more. I guess it's more of the like adult version of that genre, but
Yeah. War Games was another one that was really
War
cool.
Games. Yeah, I was just looking at that.
oh yeah.
Oh, here's a really obscure, cool one. Repo Man. Did you guys ever
Repo
watch
Man,
Repo
yeah.
Man?
And
With
Lawnmower
Emilio
Man.
Estevez?
Yeah, I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, Repo Man is like a 1984 comedy, but it has a sci-fi twist towards the ending.
Oh, okay.
Well, it builds up throughout the whole thing, but it's so goofy and weird. It's dark comedy, but it's a cult favorite. I watched that a bunch of times when I was about 18 or 19, and tried to because it's so quotable. You can quote that movie quite a bit.
Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. That is a great movie. I would watch that again.
Mm-hmm.
Mad Max is great.
Yeah.
Man, these are real blasts from our childhood.
Is Bill and Ted's a science fiction? Does
I'd
like,
call
I
it
mean,
just I guess it's like a Douglas Adams, like a comedy science fiction, right?
Yeah,
It is a time travel. They do go to the future.
yeah,
And
the past.
Yeah.
So, what is the most iconic movie of the 90s?
Oh, Matrix.
Yeah, Matrix. I agree with that.
It just barely made it in that decade, didn't it?
Yeah, and after the Matrix would have been not only the most iconic in my mind, but also my favorite. But my second most favorite would be Contact.
Yeah.
With what's her name, Jodie Foster.
Mm-hmm.
And Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, that was who wrote that?
Carl Sagan.
It was Carl Sagan. That's what I thought.
Based on
Yeah,
his book. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. And it was pretty close. Although
Yeah.
in the book they found the message in digits of pi. That's where the message was hidden, was in the fundamental nature of the universe. Whereas in Contact, it was, through the radio telescopes.
Right.
Which is a bit different.
Yeah,
Definitely.
the book was a little more deep that way.
Yeah.
I didn't get the message out of the book though that you had articulated another time when we talked about this. Oh, that in the movie, or somebody was saying this. The sort of contesting as a matter of faith, right? Is at the end. She, as a scientist, she always rejects, the testimony of people of faith for just believing it because of their experience. And then at the end of the whole thing, it makes it clear in the movie, especially, right? She has this experience that she has no evidence of and can't prove to anybody after she gets back, but it's real. And that's a neat juxtaposition for a guy like Carl Sagan to make.
For sure, but at the same time, I think it leaves you by saying you can't just assume that what happened to her was real. It still has the same, her experience should lead to the same hypothesis, which is just that she had an experience according to her. Though we're watching the movie in that narrative way, it's the same thing. We can't guarantee that it happened.
Hmm.
She could have hallucinated it.
Makes it a bit of a complex ending. And it's interesting because her colleagues, the scientific folk, are skeptical, but her religious friend, Matthew McConaughey, believes her. Can do it on faith.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But it may also be true, right? That like the laws of physics might be rigged up such that it will never be possible to have communication across large distances. But in the realm of subjective, if there's such a thing as, a subjective realm and thought and stuff, right? That's might be the only way to communicate with faraway places. And so, I mean, that's what I remember getting out of the movie, that like, yeah, the tech is consciousness tech. And it did happen in her head, but it was real. And that's what we have to accept about it.
Mm-hmm. It's like in The Dreaming Void by Peter F. Hamilton. It's only the
Aha!
humans who can communicate into the void through their dreams.
Yeah. How's that book coming? You're liking that? Is it getting
I
better?
finished it. I
Oh,
finished it.
good.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't started the next one. I liked it. Yeah, that was good.
Okay, good.
The Fifth Element. I think that was a 90s
I love
one.
The Fifth Element.
Yeah.
I did too.
Yeah.
Just because it was so weird.
It was a well-made movie. It's a good action adventure soap opera in space. Good effects. It was, a little wacky.
Yeah.
The puppetry and stuff. It was a lot like,
Wackatry.
it always reminds me of the original Total Recall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, a
But I'd
little
say
bit.
better. Yeah, funnier.
Both European directors as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've and we've been passing the inkle around. It's hard to watch that movie now, having read the inkle,
Interesting.
and not think of Mobius and realize, there's a lot lifted off of this comic and put into in this movie. Just to take a quick detour into like French comic book art, like you do see a similar aesthetic. You do see a shared approach, like you might see in American comics, or you might see other regions of the world, Japanese anime and that sort of thing. So there is certainly a sort of cultural aesthetic maybe gets interpreted as the influence of the one that everyone in North America knows. Like everyone, North America knows Mobius, so it all must be related back to him, and it likely isn't. But I do. It's hard for me to watch, as much as I love. I don't mind artists stealing from other artists, but it's hard for me to watch that, like The Fifth Element, and not immediately think of that. And that's not a bad thing. Like that's a good. If you are gonna steal from the best.
Yeah. Bad artists copy and good artists steal.
That's great.
There you go. The greatest compliment anybody ever paid to Mobius was stealing his work repeatedly.
I don't know if anybody ever watched the movie Event Horizon. It was yeah. I remember I went to see that in theaters by myself. Nobody else wanted to go see it, so I went to go see this by myself. And I remember I drove there and I went to the theaters and I watched it, and it was it was a horror sci-fi, and it was freaky. I remember it being genuinely disturbing.
Yeah.
And I came out of that movie and I was sick as a dog. So I had gone in healthy and I came out with some type of an illness that knocked me out for a day or two.
The darkness got you.
The darkness got me, or something did. But I remember that one had a profound effect on me. That was obviously, I presume it was unrelated to my illness. But anyway, I came out of it sick. I liked the movie. Thought it was quite good, but it made me sick.
Yeah, it's not a bad movie at all. It actually creeped me out a bit too, and movies usually don't too much.
And Lawrence Fishburne was in that one too.
Mm-hmm. With Sam Neill. One of my favorites, might be my favorite from the 90s, is 12 Monkeys by Terry Gilliam. And I believe he wrote this as well. And that is another, I mean, when you think of Bruce Willis in science fiction, you think, well, I guess Fifth Element. And then if you think 12 Monkeys, it's very different and very close. I think they were a year or two apart in their release. But I love Terry Gilliam movies. He did, actually, we didn't mention Brazil from the 80s. Brazil is also an original screenplay by Terry Gilliam. That's really, really cool. Visually stimulating. And the writing is it's 80s, so it's a bit tiresome at times, but I love Brazil. And then 12 Monkeys, yeah. 12 Monkeys is great. Did you guys like that one?
I never saw it.
Oh, you gotta watch 12 Monkeys.
Oh, it's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember not having. I went into 12 Monkeys with no expectations. I didn't have anything about it, and I thought it was amazing. I remember really being surprised.
Well, it's kind of an artist's movie too, right? And again, it's European. But Terry Gilliam also did Time Bandits in the 80s.
Oh, really?
I forgot about Time Bandits. That's yeah. That's gotta.
I remember staying up late one night. My brother said, "There's a guy, Terry Gilliam. He did Time Bandits, and we'd already seen it. He did another one called The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. Let's get up at 1 o'clock in the morning. It was, or maybe it was 11. I don't know what it was. We'll sneak up and we'll record it." And we would do that so that we could press pause on the VCR. Because if you press pause when you're recording, when a commercial came up, it cut out the commercials. Which is kind of interesting because now, if I had those tapes, it'd be the commercials I would be interested in more than the movie. Do you prefer Back to the Future or Back to the Future Part 2? Because when I think I like Part 2, and I think that's against the grain but at the same time, it's way more science fiction.
I prefer Indiana Jones. I like the first one for me. That's my vote.
Because it's the first and it did it. It paved the way.
The first one is a perfect movie. Right? It is actually studied as a perfect script. It's just
the script
something
is
magic
ingenious.
about that movie. So as a piece of filmmaking, I guess I'd say the first one. But as a piece of science fiction, the second one, I do remember also being more satisfied
with the complication of time travel and that kind of.
Yeah, with the second one. And the second one is great. I mean, it really is great. So is the third one. I have no. I mean, it's an amazingly successful franchise. The first two probably better than the third, but.
So I don't know if we call them the 2000s or the aughts. What are people? Do we know what we're doing with that yet in history? Like, are we calling them the 2000s?
We haven't gotten to the aught yet point. I don't think we've, as a society, made that decision. I mean, we should, but we haven't.
It'll forever be the 2000s?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, the 2000s.
I'm a bit disappointed about that. I was hoping we could start saying the aughts.
Some people do.
Yeah.
I've heard it.
What's the...
I don't have any faith in it.
Actually, I just pulled up the list on Google, and the first one on this list, actually, the fourth one in on this list is Sunshine, which is that was a great movie.
Yeah, Danny Boyle is very, very good. That's a really good.
I remember that vaguely.
The indelible moment from that movie for me is where they come upon the lone survivor who, turns out to be kind of the bad guy, but he's just been staring at the sun and he's burnt to a crisp. And he's just basically one giant 5th-degree burn. And he's somehow sort of adjusted to it in a way, and he's still somehow alive. And it's just the conversation that happens in that scene is what's I still think of sometimes, which is not often the case because I tend to forget the movie that I've just watched like 3 days ago. But anyways, that was a great film.
It's a slow burn.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's pun intended.
You're allowed. You're a dad. You're allowed.
Avatar would be iconic, especially in terms of 3D, because I mean, as soon as that came out in 2009, everything came out 3D. Did you guys see that movie in 3D in the theater?
No, I missed it.
I didn't.
So I remember seeing this in the theater because myself and my brother were huge James Cameron fans. So the last film he had come out with was Titanic.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had this science fiction movie, which was obviously back to his roots because before that it was Terminator and Aliens and The Abyss. So we assumed this would be, or hoped that it would be really good. And the most shocking part about Avatar is less about the movie itself and more about the 3D experience. Because when I saw that in the theater, um, in 3D 2009, it was the first time seeing what a 3D movie, and it was just like, oh my god, it felt like something different.
Mm-hmm.
And then within 3 months, they started to use that basic 3D technology to just convert uh, digital film into 3D, which is what they all started to do. Films were not filmed with the 3D camera like Avatar was. I believe The Hobbit was, but all the other 3D movies were just converted. So the effect you get, I will say this: we're in 2021 now. The year is 2021, and still the 3D movie has not been done as well as Avatar was in the theater.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, I can't. Yeah, I'm not sure. I now that Marty said, is it just because it's the first time you saw it, or is it a function of that, or is it, as you say, is it because it was purpose built through from the camera right up through to the shots for that by a brilliant director? Probably a bit of both. And
It's hard to tell.
Yeah, but that's an excellent. You both make really good points there, and you have me thinking about it. But I'm like, what was there ever another film in 3D that I enjoyed? No, but I really liked Avatar, and I really liked it in 3D. So that's hard to say. Yeah.
When I look back on movies that I saw in 3D, my brain actually doesn't even think like that. I'm like, what movies have I seen in the theater in the last 10 years? And they all mesh together, but Avatar is like, oh, that's that one movie that was in 3D that was impressive.
Yeah.
Children of Men.
Yeah, for sure.
Brutal movie.
Mm.
I'd like to read that one. That's a P.D. James book. I'd like to check that one out and see if it makes me as depressed as the movie did.
District 9, also a little bit iconic, right, for the filmmaking.
Love that movie.
Yeah, that was good.
That was one of the more interesting movies in this list. And Moon, I would say, right? Moon is a great movie.
Moon was really, really cool.
I mean, it's a cerebral sci-fi lovers movie, right? Like, it's just a great story. One actor, right, the whole time, I think, right?
Oh yeah. Well, there's a couple side, but yeah, it's
just totally carried by the narrative and the story, and super cool. I dig that, but hard to. I could see it's not a blockbuster or anything, right? Like, I can't show that movie to my kids. Really, they'd be bored by it. It's too cerebral.
One book to film that worked for the first time is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in 2004. That one really worked well in terms of adapting a really funny book into a really funny movie.
Yeah,
did it.
It was good. I agree. I showed that one to our kids as well, and coming out of that, because I had read all the books to the kids as well, and coming out of that one, the beginning song is "So long and thanks for all the fish," and somehow we got the audio for that, and for probably 2 months, William woke up to that song as his alarm. Every single morning, he'd be listening to "So long and thanks for all the fish" from the beginning of that movie.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, that movie was the bridge that finally got my kids to understand British humor. And actually, I read the whole series to them after the movie because they sort of clicked and they got it that it was funny. And so I read all 5 installments all the way through to Mostly Harmless.
I haven't read them all. I should do that.
I mean, the first one's the best, and the second one's really good. You know, they sort of go a little downhill after that, but that's to be expected. But they're great. They're short. They're witty. They're better than anything else he ever wrote. Like the holistic detective agency is a little.
I agree.
Managed to read one of those to the kids too, but we were like, okay, that was not nearly as fun as the Hitchhiker's Guide. Like, that is highly condensed, high quality humor and entertainment.
So this movie should not be a science fiction, but for some reason it is. Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls.
Really?
I think we had some way to burn every copy of that movie.
You didn't like that one, eh?
Yeah. Indiana Jones ended at the
Last Crusade.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So are we going to move to the
Right,
2010s?
oh,
Yeah, lots of good ones in this decade.
Yeah.
My absolute favorite was Interstellar. And I know, Tristan, you liked this one as well.
Loved it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing for me with this one was it was, I mean, it is nerdy to like real sci-fi, but it's real sci-fi, and the story was great, and the human story was great, and it was complex. I really like complex ones, and I mean, the first time I watched Interstellar, I knew it was amazing, but I couldn't quite figure out why, and because I missed stuff, and then I watched it again, and I kind of figured out, oh, now I see what they're doing with this. Then it was the third time through that I actually picked up on the nuance that a lot of this story could actually be plausible, with some of our theories today. Like it was designed to be a movie that actually has basis in science, as a lot of good sci-fi does, right? The time dilation as you get closer to Gargantua, right? The big black hole, the crosstalk through time by using gravity, the future humans requiring the previous humans to be able to navigate back in time using the Tesseract, right? There were these real interesting ways of conceptualizing these concepts. Like I swear I thought this was from a book, and I realized it wasn't. But the author's actually written a book about the science behind Interstellar.
Well, Kip Thorne wrote a book, I believe it's just called Gravity,
Okay.
and he's a physicist who's written a lot on just gravity, and apparently he helped Christopher Nolan with the plot a little bit.
Yeah.
Kip Thorne, yeah, he's like an old school black hole theorist. He's one of the founders of the field. He's like one of the few from like good old days, 60s, 70s, black hole theory, and so he's super legit. Like, he's who you go to for black holes if you can't get Stephen Hawking, basically. And it's awesome that he went.
And you can't get Stephen Hawking right now, so
you can't. You really can't. And so, and he did the work on visualizing like what it would actually look like in 3D. So Kip Thorne, has been thinking about black holes his whole life and has thought about, and so they worked together and wrote the code and everything, right, for the visualizing of this 3D black hole, which is interesting that it took so long. Like, it's kind of, we've been talking about black holes a long time. We were talking about the black hole in the 1980s movie, right, like an hour ago, and it's always imagined in 2D, so that was a beautiful, like, realistic, real science step forward in Interstellar, to just like actually imagine it in 3D and what it would look like, a black sphere.
You know what else is neat is that Matt Damon was a villain. I don't know that he's been a villain in any other movie.
He should always be a villain. I'm not a Matt Dillon fan.
No, yeah, he could. I agree. He could be easily can be.
I was actually just looking at what is this Matt Damon film on here? Elysium? Is that it?
Oh, Elysium. That's by the guy who did District 9.
Oh, right.
That's actually a pretty fun movie too.
Yeah.
Like it's in the same style as District 9, and there's a the Earth is gone to pot, and everyone's all the wealthy people live on a station that orbits Earth, and it's kind of cool. Like, it's kind of a cool idea. So he's trying to escape Earth and break into the good place, so to speak.
Right.
And It's kind of neat. Like it's everyone's got like mods and all that kind of stuff. So there's a bit of cyborg and some good dystopian future happening there. It was kind of a fun movie. It's I think with District 9 the same issue with this District 9 that this movie had was that there's a um some issue with the writing, some issues I think with the writing and with the continuity and the flow of the movie. Like that, there needs to be. It's a little choppy in places, and it doesn't always quite work. It's a great concept that's executed in an acceptable way. It's not like brilliantly executed, is what I would say.
Yeah, the
And
concept
the
is
other Matt
fantastic,
Damon
and then
The Martian, right? Which I really enjoyed too. It felt acceptable.
he was the
Certainly.
villain in that too, right? Didn't he kill all those potatoes?
Damon Potato Slayer.
Done. Yeah,
Sure
I'm really
did.
amazed at how many movies I've loved in the 2010s. Like, geez, I didn't realize how concentrated they were. Like Lucy, Arrival was an amazing movie. Like, there's
Arrival
really
was fantastic.
legitimate Annihilation. I think in the 2010s we're starting to see, having gone through this little cruise, this is the first time we're seeing like modern, great sci-fi books turned into good movies. Like Annihilation, right? That's a great book turned into a movie. Arrival, that's a great short story turned into a movie. In a way, I guess we were seeing that before too. Divergent, right? Those were popular.
Well, we went on a young adult spree with the Hunger Games, The Giver,
Right, yeah.
and those ones.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen Divergent. Anyway, it's neat. Yeah, it's kind of a noticeable evolution here.
For
where
sure.
the better
Even with
sci-fi
the
movies are now from good established novels.
even with the Alien franchise, I don't think the last two Alien movies were fantastic, but Prometheus, even though it wasn't a great movie by the end, it kind of just turned into an action horror by the end. It's still really, just visually, we're now telling really good stories. And we have enough good actors to do it properly every time. So I do think the last two Alien movies, Prometheus and Alien Covenant, were not great, but they were also very, very good. They still really filled in a huge gap in the story, and they visually look fantastic, even though the film doesn't totally pay off.
That's a good point. Like the technology in terms of animation and special effects is caught up to be able to incorporate a whole new level of storytelling and genre. As you can tell all the stories that you could only tell in animation now in live action. Like what might have been an animated sort of subculture film in the 70s or 80s became a 3D animation that was sort of half seen by adults, like in the 80s and 90s, but by the 2000s, everything you could animate now in 3D animation in special effects and everything like that. It sort of got to the point that there's really no story off limits. I mean, that sort of explains the explosion of all the Marvel films and the comic book films and everything like that, because you could tell all those stories for at a cost that wasn't prohibitive and then deliver those stories. And we're in a time now where we feel that future is closer, that sci-fi isn't a far off thing that people can't relate to, that maybe it's a little closer to home now, that people have an expectation that some of these things that are concepts that are happening in sci-fi films are actually more attainable. And so we want to see it in our entertainment more. And that's why it feels like there's a far bigger list of sci-fi. Like it's you go on Netflix or whatever, and that genre and that section is actually quite robust. There's a lot to pick from, and it's new.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'd say Christopher Nolan is the best, one of the best that we have right now. Him, and for myself, I love Christopher Nolan and Villeneuve. They're the two that seem to keep doing it.
Villeneuve is doing a Dune TV series. Maybe you guys mentioned this, but I didn't pick up on it. The Sisterhood. and they've done it's called Dune: The Sisterhood. It's a TV series, and they've done a pilot for it.
Wow. This is in addition to him doing the Dune movie?
Yeah, so this is something else. It's I don't know. It's called Dune: The Sisterhood. It must be about the
Bene Gesserits.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow, cool. Well, that's super exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm always in this day and age happier about the television serialization of these narratives over the movies.
What did you guys think of the Mad Max redo, Fury Road? Do you guys see that?
Amazing.
That's awesome.
I think that was that's an iconic movie of the last 10 years for sure.
Yeah,
and
it
one
was good.
Really good in 3D. Like, I don't know about you guys, but that stands out as a epic 3D movie. To me, I really enjoyed it.
The neatest part about that movie is there's barely a story. They try to get away, then they realize they have to go back, and that's the whole story in a nutshell. But you get the most brilliant scenes and photography and effects, music, everything. Just oh my god, what a movie!
Yeah, that was a great one.
It's a great road trip movie. It's a couple, the gang gets in a car and they go across the desert and they're like, you know what? They like have some wacky adventures. You'll love it.
Fantastic. I mean,
well, we covered a little bit of science fiction, television, and film, but I think we are going to keep doing this. Every once in a while, we're going to come out with another episode where we're just going to go deeper into television and film. So, next episode, number 5, A Memory Called Empire. Join us. It's going to be great. Until next time.